Lilith, was she a goddess, an extraterrestrial alien, genetic experiment, or something else? Generally, in mythology, there are several references to this name. Depending on the country of origin, there are different versions. For example, there is a different view in Egypt and Mesopotamia, another one in China and in the Indies, and another in the West, India that is. But they all have common features, but the details are what change. In Egypt, mythology wants Lilith to be a powerful being, a goddess, who sits on a throne and eats young people in the area of Babylon. In India, they want Lilith to reside on one of the highest peaks of the Himalayas in a temple, and the area in question has been designated by local residents who recreate the myths as forbidden. The area, they say, is forbidden. But in reality, the story of Lilith is a bit complicated and strange, mainly based on the ancient Hebrew text, Genesis, and the Old Testament, and or in relation to the European positions on the subject. It's important to say that many scientists around the world have done research on the subject. In the scriptures, only the name Eve appears as a first female, but in the Hebrew scriptures and in the Indian scriptures, the Mahabharata, the ancient Indian text kept under special conditions of preservation to withstand time, the name Lilith does appear instead of Eve. From this, many conclude that the text over the centuries have been deliberately falsified. But why and who would have interest in doing such a thing, and what interest would these be? So in these second ones, and based on the first ones of Genesis, we have the following in summary. The Elohim, bright stars, highly distorted term in Holy Scriptures in Genesis, created the first female human in the creation of the universe, after the plants were first made and the water separated from the earth. The texts about the creation of the world in which we live are certainly mentioned. According to basic theological philosophy, the original bodies of humans were genderless and material, so we assume that a new simpan, that is ours, was created out of whatever need arose. Thus, the races of men were created, and based on these texts, Lilith was the first female human, and Adam was the first male human. The binary system was essentially created, so Lilith settled in Mesopotamia, where she initially operated. Is it mythology or paraphilology? According to myths, Lilith was an experiment that failed. That is, she was not a man like Adam, but something else with a strange form, which had the wings and legs of a predator and with amazing abilities. Based on ancient Indian texts, Lilith had an insatiable thirst for energy. Everywhere she passed, everything died, and as she absorbed their energy. And from her, you mythologize that the race of vampires was created from her union with one of the Elohim, ? She hated people for some strange reason, while they seem to have regarded her as a goddess. Lilith had supernatural abilities. She could almost do whatever she wanted, and even as the legends say, she could go whenever she wanted to the transcendental world and come back to the material world. She was characterized, among other things, as a goddess of lust, since she mated incessantly and she wanted to have as many offspring as possible. Could they have been vampires? ? She had also been called the whore of Babylon and the whore of the universe. And today, mythology in Tibet, in the Himalayas, on a very pointed peak of these at a height of 6,900 meters, there is a mysterious and large temple. Of course, there is no road leading to the great temple, not even for a joke. The people of Tibet say mysterious things about this place, and based on their traditions, it is strictly forbidden for anyone to approach. Climbers, probably. This peak of the mountain is called Dalai Sagar, Sagar. As rumored by the local Tibetans, the goddess Lilith lives there even today. In America, and even informally to many, all feminist movements are based on the belief of the goddess Lilith. She is their secret leader, while some of these organizations do not hide it at all. One of the biggest feminists in the world, where she is constantly trying to implement her plans, is Hillary Clinton. Many organizations, feminists for whatever they do, putting up key positions at the same time, women with power and with very bad past, some of them, to manage them. Now, what is actually truth and about this myth? Where myths confuses reality, the theory begins, and conspiracies begin. Communication. 1. The movie Third Contact of the Third Type, which was shown in the cinema in 2010 in movie theaters, was based on real events and real videos. I emphasize this: in real events and videos. Those who have seen it understand. There are people where they testified that something very bad was approaching them in their dreams, had the initial appearance of an owl, and you can look at the original image of Lilith looking at an owl, combined with a myth that she could travel to the transcendental world of dreams. And conspiracy theory 2, it had also been linked to some daredevils that Lilith and her sons have something to do with the wariness of humans after their sleeps. In theory, is infinitely based on a literally unimaginable scenario that they want the goddess not only to exist in reality but to act on an astral body of people during sleep, drawing their energy. And theory 3, I think it's very strange that the experts and scientists on such matters who have examined them in detail have come to the conclusion that both the Holy Bible and the Old Testament and Genesis are texts that have been falsified. I think if experts say so, then I can't dispute them. But why did something like this happen? This, as they say, happened in 2 places. The first is in the term Elohim, and the second in the term Lilith. And the fourth theory, one version, is that Mora is Lilith, Adam's first wife, or one of her 3 daughters. As the Gnostic texts and Apocrypha of the Old Testament state, Lilith was separated from paradise. Mora is an independent spirit, and according to the descriptions, she's a woman dressed in black who appears in someone's sleep, usually when the person is sleeping on his back, holding his hands, trying to take his breath away. And theory 5, the 5th conspiracy theory, is also the most extreme, since it agrees with almost all the previous ones and adds that Lilith is a queen of the NEPHILIM, out of the 72 in total, and in fact, not just any, but the only true NEPHILIM, and her descendants are the real unique NEPHILIM. And they did not create the Bible of vampires or Baphomets as mentioned in other foreign or Greek literature, as well as through special ceremonies they initiated people, while the rest, and at regular intervals, they simply did away with them at night using various techniques. And that's why people have been afraid of the dark ever since, without knowing or remembering why. My position on the Nephilim in general: in this post I'll accept that everything about the Nephilim is true so that I can't proceed to the next post. My question is this: what if all this is true? So what would we lose or gain if they were lies? Much better quality of life is a very good and easy answer. Yes, I don't say, but also so many people who have been born and left this world. After all, what were these beings really stopping them? The truth is kind of weird here. If we accept that all of these exist and are indeed true, I do not think they could stop man from what he should do. Of course, I speak without thinking correctly, since in the old days, always relying on the fact that the texts are true, they acted and were even responsible for many deaths, and I'm not talking about those of adults, but of interest, the deaths of minors. So what should ultimately be of interest is how much these beings influence people's lives from a theological point of view. And from a theological point of view, I even think that they contributed to the opposite and not the obvious happening. If someone will come and hurt me, it's certainly a blow to me, but that's the main thing, and that we should want, not to get hurt. That is, if there were not all these fantasies and everything was good and peaceful in our world, this would make us happy forever. Or would that be the case when then in this way we would be lost even further away from the concept of God? And would we forget any kind of repentance and faith until one fine morning we left this nice world? Behind every plan is God's plan. Why this should happen, meaning why these creatures should exist representing evil, we would answer by reversing the question. Why should there be Siamese, monstrosities, all kinds of genetic disabilities? Why should there be the various elements and diseases that afflict and whip the world every day? Essentially, there are two questions so similar to each other, so whether they exist or not, it matters little, and more so that we have something to deal with. And that's because our own reality is just as harsh as the one you present in videos and permitted by some divine mechanism for all this, or if they are allowed to do it all this then and now, then this is just another proof that we are living far from God's good, from his righteousness and truth, his world, and more specifically, we are simply living in a hell, or in a ward of it, in a sense, Prophet Enoch. And in no case in the world of God that Christ spoke to us and all the previous wise men before him. I think this is the most important. This is why man is now allowed to suffer, and to be in pain. This is why man is ignorant. He has no memory, and there are dichotomies between them. When for a thing there is more than one opinion about it, then it is false. So it would be better not to waste ourselves on such matters as if we had invented the wheel, but on more substantial ones. And the most essential one are about what Socrates, among others, spoke about, that is the divine presence, and with respect to man. This I've translated for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box